Welcome to Holy Wreckage, where we stop pretending, start telling the truth, and make room for healing out loud. This podcast is about the wreckage life leaves behind and the redemption that God can bring from it. Every episode is filled with raw stories, honest faith, and real conversations that remind you that you're not alone, not too far gone, and it's not beyond restoration. Subscribe, like, and follow Holy Wreckage so you don't miss an episode. Welcome, friends. I am here today with John David Gregory. It's such a pleasure to be with him today. He has such an amazing testimony that I'm so happy for him to share. He's worn a lot of hats. He's in Southern California right now, and he is a Navy veteran, an elite protection specialist, an actor, a speaker, and an author of the memoir, The Faceless Man book. This story is about identity. It isn't found in reflection. It's forged in redemption. So welcome, John David. I'm so glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here today. It's truly an honor and a privilege. I always say to everybody, I go, if I'm on your podcast or I'm here, I truly believe that God has a word for someone that's willing to hear. So I'm excited.
Amen. Thank you. So a title like that doesn't just, you don't just come up with that off the top of your head. There's some wreckage in there, I'm sure. So tell us what led you to write this book.
Wow. What led me to write this book? I've been putting it off for so long. Actually, I never wanted to write this book. It was only supposed to be my confessional to the Lord, and that was it. I felt that was good enough. Even my current wife didn't know half the stuff. The world around me doesn't know half the stuff. My family doesn't know. My deceased now parents didn't know half of it. And I came to a point where I finally said, enough is enough. You're hiding too much. I need victory in some areas of my life that I was not feeling like I was getting victory in. And it's still a process. And through just a lot of prayer and encouragement from my wife and then from my pastor, and just everything God's doing in my life right now, just a lot of being stuck in some areas and just like nothing working out for me. And I'm going lately, and I get in things and they just go amazing. I've been very blessed. Anything I put my hand to, I've just been very blessed in. But man, been through a dry season, and an old friend of mine used to say, when God wants to get your attention, he'll dry everything up, man. And I'm like, what, God, what do you want from me? And my wife had been encouraging me. She's like, your story, she goes, I know I don't even know all of it, but I found myself always sharing it with people one-on-one, or people asking me questions privately and different things. And then there was a moment, it's in the book, in October of last year. I was at church, and actually prior to that, I'd run into my pastor backstage recently they've had me do like their online. I'm like, they're on we have a whole team of people, but an online host, and where I come on there before the service starts and welcome people and share announcements. And I mean, we have it's crazy. The viewers, we have like 1 million viewers all over the world. And my pastor's from Africa, and he has a crazy following. But anyways, backstage, he had seen me and was telling me I was doing a great job. And he grabbed his assistant and he said, hey, send him a copy, an excerpt of a book I'm writing. And this guy doesn't do that. He just does not do that. He's very intentional in anything he does and speaks. He's very prophetic. He works as an office of a pastor and a prophet, both. And when he said that, I was like, wow, he wants to send me. He goes, no one has even an excerpt of this yet. No one, not even my wife. So fast forward, he actually had assistants send it to me. It was really, and it was about the spirit realm and some deep stuff that God was revealing to him that he's going to write, that he's working on a book. And I'm like, why did he send this to me? Which is, I mean, one, it was powerful. I'm like, wow, I was just reading it. My eyes were blown off the pages, anyway, I just felt honored that he, for whatever reason, had decided to send me the pages of his book that he's writing. Well, we had a week later, we're at a service, and I've never been used this way in the church. I've been there almost 2 years. I work on a security team. I work at the info center. I mean, I love serving in God's house. I mean, I just love being in God's house. It brings me such joy, no matter what I've done or any acting accolades or anything. Nothing is more fulfilling to me. It actually makes me emotional. I almost teared up when I just said that. Nothing, just to be able to serve in woof, all right, serve in God's house is an honor. And then but I've been through a lot, and I've been a pastor at one time, long before my first marriage. So just being a part of a church that's making a difference and impacting the world has been very honorable, even if it's just behind a counter, saying hello to
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the service, or actually towards the end, he always prays for everybody. We have really long services. I mean, 4 or 5 hour services, and people go, What? That's crazy." But
Wow.
he literally prays for every single person, and people keep coming. And it's not that his messages are that long, it's the prayer. Because
Yeah.
he said, I mean, people can leave, but by the
Right.
time we're done, it's been like, I always go, my gosh, today was 5 hours, but it doesn't feel like it when you're there, because you're literally watching him just deal and pray in people. But in the middle of, he was going around praying for this man. And before he prayed for him, he stops in his tracks and he turns and he looks and he goes, "Where's the man I gave the book to?" And I'm like, and there's probably 1,000 people, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I'm sitting in the second row and my wife elbows me and I'm like, he wouldn't interrupt me, like in the middle of the service. And he goes, and I look over and he goes, "Yes, yes." He said, "It's your time." He said,
Wow.
"Come to me." He said, "Come to me." And so I run over there and everybody starts clapping. I'm like walking over there going, what is going on? What's about to happen? I don't even know, and he goes, "Sir, what's wrong with you?" And he says, and it was an addiction this guy had. And he looked at me and he goes, "Wait a minute, before you pray for him." So he prays for me, the pastor. He goes, "Okay." And the power of God hit me. It was crazy. And next thing you know, and he goes, now you can pray for him." And I turned around and I prayed for this man. And God gave me a word for him right while I was praying for him about the alcohol that he had been struggling with. And immediately the guy started coughing and spitting up blood, and got delivered right there. I mean, it was wild. And the
Wow.
pastor, because started just clapping and screaming and dancing, and it was like, oh, and everyone, and he goes, "See, you guys, it's not me." He goes, "You guys all look like, oh, it's me." No, he goes, "God can use any of you to do this kind of work, and
Wow.
it was, and that was really cool. So here's the twist to all of this. So this is kind of cool how this is happening with this story right now, because it usually doesn't go this way. But I went home and I was like, man, that was wild. I was on such a high. I was sitting at home and I was crying. I was like, wow, Lord, I can't, how much I've struggled with addiction and things, and just that you would use me to pray for a man like this. And I felt so honored. And then my wife goes, "Are you done? Are you off your?" I'm an Italian wife. She's really straight to the point. She goes, "Are you off your high horse yet?" I'm like, "Hey, what do you mean my high horse? Come on, And she goes, "Did you hear what he said to you?" And I said, "Yeah, he told me it's my time." And he goes, "But nah, what did he say to you?" "The man I gave the book to." And I went, and my wife's very deep, and she just goes, "Babe, that was God speaking to you. The man I gave the book to, it's your time." That's what the pastor said. And then he did call me over. She goes, "I don't even think he realized maybe what he said, but that was a mandate from God." And I just went like, boom, like a light bulb went off in my head. And I went, oh my gosh. And I knew it. I felt on my knees and I started just crying. And I felt the
Mm.
unction from God that it was time to finally start to write my story. And so from that moment, it was October the 9th of last year. October the 10th, I began at 6 a.m. with worship music on at my table with my computer, my iPhone, and my notes. And I just started, like, it just comes to me. Like, I wrote this book in 2 months. That's insane.
Wow.
And so I took
That's
I but it was like it was so divine, and it was like I would work from 6 in the morning till midnight. I would
wow.
take little breaks for lunch, go work out, come back. And even while I'm working out or running and jogging, I would get in my head was just exploding with the book. And I grab my phone, I'm lifting it and I'd go, oh, scene 28. I was here, blah, 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 blah. And then it was
Mm,
crazy. I have never, and my wife, I've been married, it's my second marriage, about 8 years. And she looks at me, she goes, as long as I've known you, I've never seen you like this. I mean, from dusk till dawn for almost 2 months
mm.
writing this book, and literally, every day God gave me more and gave me more. And the crazy thing is now, like when I go back and I look at this book now and I go through it and I go, I only probably shared about two, maybe a quarter of everything, and I'm so mad now. I was like, oh Lord, like I left so much out. Like, oh
That
my
you just need
gosh.
a sequel now.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? I truly believe what came out in those 2 months for this book was exactly what needed to come out, because I gave it to some pretty hardcore critics that I thought I knew were gonna either hate it or or maybe like it. I didn't know. One, not even Christian. One, person has a PhD, one, psychologist, like, one, and I had
Mhm.
different just give me a test. And one guy was a test pilot in NASA. I said, and he's Jewish, and I said, okay, give me your honest feedback. And they all read it. They hit me up. Everyone said the same thing. They said, oh my gosh, I couldn't put it down. Literally took me 3 days to read, 4 days. He goes, normally I'll pick up a book and it'll take me a while to go through it. He goes, John David, I could not. Everyone said the same thing. Like, I couldn't wait till the next chapter. I was like, and my Jewish friend said, I was like, oh my gosh, how can he handle one more setback? Like, this guy, he's like, I was like, he goes, because I know you now, so I know you got through it. So I kept thinking, get to me to the part where he finally gets through some of this stuff. But that was the whole
Yeah.
point. But it was just, which made me realize that this book is exactly what God wants it to be for copy number one. I might
Exactly.
do, and what I'm thinking about is possibly even doing, like, stories of the Faceless Man, and like maybe like, because I have so many. I mean, I've worked in, like you announced, I had so many hats. I've had 10 lifetimes. I've worked with different celebrities, whether it be in private security or as an actor, coaching, I have a family member that's in the business. I mean, I have so much stuff, not just in Hollywood, but also in ministry, the good, the bad, the ugly that's happened to me in the childhood. I mean, I left out 90% of my high school experience, which a friend of mine that bought the book for me, I sent him a private copy. He was in high school and he goes, bro, you left it. What happened, man? I was like, I know, it didn't go that route when I was writing it. I mean, I mentioned some basketball and some of this stuff, but I left out those four. Maybe it's an area I still need some healing in and got to go back and really dive into. So I feel like there's going to be definitely a second book of some stories that come from this. I haven't figured it out yet, but this is what God wanted to get started so that men, especially, and women too, because it's not, but they say that, you know, it's funny because my publisher actually told me, he goes, you wrote your book. This book is really geared towards men, and men don't like to read. And he goes, so for this to happen, it's going to be a God thing. And I said, that's the story of my life. God always puts me in these almost impossible situations where it goes against all the odds. But guess what? I can't get the glory from that. Only he
Mhm.
can. And I
Mhm.
love that. I say, put me in a situation all day long where someone can go, yeah, John David, he's got some talent, he's this and that. But how the heck did he do that? Or how did his book go from here to here? You know what? That's going to be all the Lord, and he will get all the credit. Because at the end of the day, this book is to reach down and help those that are struggling with their identity. And that's where, I know I went on this tangent, but you asked me how it all started, because, and I can
Yeah.
actually share some of that, but that's how it started, because I had I've hidden myself behind this mirror of identity, looking at myself. That's how I came up with the Faceless Man, because I would look at myself and say, who am I today? Today I'm a coach. Today I'm an actor. Today I'm a husband. Today I'm a father. Today I'm in the military. Today I'm protecting the most famous people in the world. Who does the world need me to be today? Today I'm a
Mhm.
pastor. Today I'm a youth pastor. And I'm finally just kind of broke me just going, who do you need me to be?
Yeah. That's what matters.
And it's exhausting. And that's what I realized. It says it in the book, identity isn't found in reflection, it's forged in redemption. And that is, my gosh. And you know what? That is still the process of this whole thing. People ask me all the time, so are you at the pinnacle now? And everything, ever since this, I said, let me tell you something. Every day I wake up, I look at this beautiful area that I live in, and I thank God and that I was able to have breath and breathe again. And I count my blessings. Tomorrow's never guaranteed. And today we're here, and I praise the Lord that I have an opportunity to be a better man, to be a better husband, a better father, a better human being. And
Mhm.
and but there's no guarantee that I might not mess up. I might drive out of the neighborhood and somebody cuts me off and bad words fly out of my mouth, and I hope that does not happen, and I'm working on that, or whatever. I'm not saying I'm just built to sin, but we are sin nature and we're flesh people,
Yeah.
and I am a person that is, just walking in the grace of God, learning to allow God to love me. And that's what I was able to finally just go, you know what, bro? Put your pride aside and let the world know the struggles you went through since you were a kid. I'm 56 years old. I don't care tell my age. Hollywood doesn't tell their age. I don't care. I'm 56. I work out, I hustle. I mean, I try to make myself as best I can physically. But at the end of the day, if I don't have the spirit of God in me, none of that matters anyway.
That's
So
right.
that's what really drove me. I knew when that after that happened with that pastor, and that was God speaking through the man of God to say, "It's your time." The man I gave the book to, that was like
Mhm.
a holy moment for me to say, if I knew that if I didn't sit down and do this, I've literally missed the will of God for my life. And that is a scary moment. I
Mhm.
fear the Lord in that. That is something I fear and tremble. And every day, part of my prayer is like, God, yes, I have these things and acting and different things and different opportunities all the time come at me. But I'm always like, you know what? Shut the door if it's not your will. I mean, don't let me
Yeah.
do something stupid. If there's a trap at the other side, even though it looks nice and pretty, and I'll be on TV or I'll do this, but if there's something on the other side that's going to cause me to stumble or make a mistake or put myself in a bad situation, then cut it off. And that's
Yeah.
a hard place to get, especially in this town when work is
Yeah.
hard to get.
I
So,
completely understand your situation of being told by God in a way that this is your time to do something, because that's what happened with Holy Wreckage. I was in a moment with the Lord and he said, "I want you to do this." And I'm like, "What? Please don't make me do that." But man, when he tells you to do something, everything falls into place. Just like you were saying, you did it from sun up to sun past
yeah,
sundown. I every waking moment almost that I'm not working my day job or I'm at church, I'm doing podcasting stuff because
it's
it's a
amazing.
different drive.
Yeah.
It's something different inside of you. It's not
Yes.
your own motivation. And because there is that fear of the Lord, like he told me to do it,
Yeah.
and but there's also that confidence in it that if he told me to do it, it's gonna turn out fine.
That's right.
So yeah.
Man,
I'm
and that is such a great point. And that's, I grab this book that's on my fireplace. And I have anointed it with oil, and it's kind of greasy looking right now, but I hold on to this, and I just, every day I pick it up, and I always I give it right back to God. And I say, the burden is not on me. You told me to write this. So
Mhm,
I give it to you. Who's supposed to hear it? I didn't write it for monetary gain. I did not. That was not the motivation behind this book. I
mhm,
mean, yes, I know there's monetary gain in these kind of things that come, but that is not what motivated me to do this.
right.
So that's why I'm like, here, Lord, this is yours. Do with it as you will. Send it to the people it needs to go to. And and I think that's in life, that's what so many people don't get. Life is so busy. We get, you know, I'm just a country boy from Kentucky, man. And I moved out here to LA, and and you'll still hear a little bit of slang in me. You take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the
I heard
country
it.
out of the boy.
I heard
I'm
a
a
little
y'all
accent in
guy, like,
there.
hey y'all, I'm like when Kentucky basketball's on or football, I got my windows. Man, people they think they had someone about to call the police on me or heard me screaming and yelling, and my wife's like, "No, that's just John watching basketball for Kentucky." I'm like, I'm just that that's part of I grew up with that. Me and my mom used to
Yeah.
always just I miss her so much. We used to always sit around and watch, and my dad watch the cats play and whatnot. But yeah, that's this world has so much pulling at us, and if we don't know who we are in Christ, it's going to take us in crazy directions. Actually, I write about that in a chapter about I call it the detour. And I was headed. I was playing football at University of Kentucky, and there was a moment when I was like, this didn't mean anything to me anymore. I wasn't the star. Everything was empty. I was getting in things I shouldn't be getting into, and the college lifestyle and scene and the bars. And, I was like, and then one day I went into the theater department thinking I was just going to take an easy elective. And I seen Ashley Judd's pictures on the wall. She was an alumnus from UK. And I was like, man, that looks really cool. And I've always loved acting. I mean, I did it when I was a kid. I was in plays and church plays. I was on this show called the Blue Apple Players in Louisville, Kentucky, which was kind of like a pre-Barney show before Barney was ever popular. I mean, we're talking the 70s. Okay. So, I was in Actors Theater of Louisville summer programs, and Actors Theater of Louisville, if you look it up, is giving us some really great actors that are out in Hollywood, like Kathy Bates and some others that are out there. I can't even think of all of them, but maybe my name will be on there one day. But at the end of the day, I started to take the classes. I fell in love with acting, and it just gave me such it was filling a void that I wasn't getting anymore from playing sports, at the college level. And and then one night it was after a football game. We had lost, and all the football team was out at this bar in town in Lexington. And we were, it was like a dance bar, nothing like it is today. I look back at stuff like that, I'm like, we were so mild compared to what these kids are dealing with today. But it was a dance bar, and I'm out there, and all the football team is like, the song like Ice Ice, but they nicknamed me the Iceman because when I was in college, my hair was kind of spiked up and everything, and then the
I can
whole
see it.
Top Gun, yeah, the whole Top Gun thing with Val Kilmer. And so I had on my Kentucky jacket, Iceman. That was just my nickname. And so the song Ice Ice Baby comes on, and I go out in the middle of the dance floor, and the joke was, for a white boy I can move, and I just started dancing and doing my thing. And the place went nuts, and all the football, you're talking these 6'8" giant guys all screaming for me, and everybody loved it. So I go back to the bar to get a drink, and next thing you know, this dude hands me a business card, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about, being a male dancer?" And I just kind of looked at him sideways, like, What do you mean? I don't want to dance." No," and he goes, "No, no, for." I thought, "What are you trying to hit on me?" Or I'm not, but he was like, "No, like for women, you dance club and you dance for women. There's girls, and
Like the Chippendales?
correct." So I that was that here's the thing, and I know we kind of skipped a bunch, but I'm just trusting this is the way God wants this whole story this to come out right now.
Yeah.
My childhood dream was play basketball at Kentucky, and it got derailed, never happened. So I ended up walking on the football team, which was kind of just a temporary band-aid. Yes, I did get to have Kentucky across my chest, but it was just not what I wanted. It wasn't what I was there. My dream was to play basketball for the Cats. And
Mm.
I was kind of coined the last guy cut from Rick Pitino's first team in Kentucky, which is true. Anyways, so hadn't been in church, nothing, because I grew up in church and everything. Meanwhile, I'm giving you a fast forward, the whole section I haven't talked about. But growing up in my childhood, I had been sexually abused over and over and over by different people, a family friend, a coach, and so forth. And so all this I had suppressed and never told anybody. So, and then through that, also, I struggled with my sexual identity. I was like, why are men why are they all attracted to me? Why are these things keep happening to me? Am I gay or whatever? And I was like, well, I'm not attracted to men, but why does this stuff keep happening to me?
Mhm.
So, anyways, I just wanted to give you that little I kind of just quick little told the whole beginning within like 20 seconds there. And because I really feel this is important part to hear about this detour. For whatever reason, I feel like this is the part that God's highlighting to me right now is this detour. And I
Okay.
posted this on my YouTube because detour, man, God has a plan for every single person here. You, me, everyone. I don't care if it's the richest guy, the biggest house over there, or down this here, the homeless guy in the corner. God has a plan for every single person. I truly believe that. And the enemy will do whatever he can to keep you from going there.
Mhm.
So that was his plan for John David Gregory. So I'm at the bar, the guy hands me the card, and you know what? It was a moment where I was like, I'll check it out. Mistake number one. That mistake cost me 10 years. I
Entertaining the idea.
I ended up becoming a male dancer. I actually became one of the biggest dancers in the region. I was all over the place dancing in Louisville, all in the Midwest area, South Carolina, Florida, Daytona. It was everywhere. Club La Vila, Panama City.
I've spent some time in Club La Vila. I
So you
used to
know
live
Club
in
La
Panama
Vila.
City.
So you know what I'm
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about.
Yes. I partied there in the '90s and
90,
early
yes. Well, you
2000s.
might have seen me. You don't know. I was I was there for sure.
I think I did
But
see a show there. Yeah,
yep,
I did.
it might have been me. I was there. I used to go there
Wow.
all the time, and a couple buddies of mine, we would just go up there, and they'd always have us dance there, and I made a ton of money. Just it was just a crazy time. And again, I look at that life during that time, and I think, man, if that was today, I probably would have been dead already because of just the intensifying aspects of partying today. And I'm not justifying it by any means. I told my son this. I said, son, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Please don't drink. Please don't do all the things that your dad did that were horrible back then. You know, I said, I'm a hypocrite because I did it. I don't want to be a hypocrite, but if you do, be safe, but don't touch. I said, what if you want to drink, do it moderately. I said, however, if you touch drugs, you're going to die. I said, your dad was very lucky that during that time, we didn't have all the stuff you guys have to deal with. So I beg you, I cry, I'll rip my anything. Just please, dear God, don't touch anything narcotic. And if
Yeah.
alcohol, just keep it to not to one to none if you can. I prefer you didn't at all. And so,
Mhm.
anyways, I say all that to say that took a 10-year detour for me. So I was gonna leave Kentucky and go to Hollywood because I had a really good my coach was like, "Man, you're really talented." And I'd done some showcases around the area and they were like, "Oh, you should go out to LA." And then I ended up going to New York in 1991 to meet with a casting for Guiding Light soap opera. And I met with and I was still playing football at the time. And I met with a casting director there. And so he was like, he thought I was amazing, everything, but he told me my acting was suspect. And he was like, but he goes, you need to go to Hollywood. He goes, you can't, New York is, see, again, the game changed. New York was really like theater, 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 and LA was, Baywatch and all these other shows. And that was in the 90s.
Mhm.
So I really did fit the description for at that time for Hollywood and LA. So I came back, was like, that's it, I'm going to LA. And then I ended up, still playing football, finishing the year. And all my intentions was I'm going to Hollywood. That's it. And my mom, "Oh, no, I'm going to Hollywood." I'm like, "No, I'm going to Hollywood." It's 1991, and then all I got is this is the craziest thing. It wasn't until 96 that I ended up here, but I was still dancing, but I got involved in that dancing for 10 years. So it was a crazy, crazy ride, and it's all in the book. I tell the story when I walked into Chippendale's office out here in Hollywood and actually on Wilshire Boulevard, and then, I actually they made me audition and at the dance center, and it's a funny little story, and it's G-rated, but, some of the stuff in the book is a little, definitely be over 18 to read, but I don't tell it for the glorification, but I tell it this is why I call it a raw cinematic memoir. I tell it because I want people to know the in-depthness of what sin can do and how far it can take you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm in no way trying to say this is so glorifying, no, but people need to realize how you can get in this, and it's a web that will just keep taking you down, and it's fun for a while, and I will say this, I've gone on record saying this, and some people get all upset. I'm like, "Man, I had a blast." I'm not gonna lie, I had a blast. It was fun for a while. And then it got bad, and bad relationships and fights, and oh my gosh, almost getting shot by husbands, and I mean the drugs, and I mean, just by the grace of God, we're on this podcast right now.
Mm.
And so with that being said, 10 years, until finally it was around 95, 96. I had actually opened up my own show in Louisville, Kentucky. Um, and I was like, if I knew that if I did not get out, I was never going to get out. Cause I'll never forget. I do a show in South Carolina, and a buddy of mine, we got invited to go to this club up in Greenville, South Carolina. And I went in there to do the show, and this dude was up on stage. He had real long hair, and he looked like he was in his late 50s, early 60s, decent shape still, but moving around a little slow up there. And I remember seeing him up there, and I looked at my buddy, we're in our 20s, and I'm like, what is this grandpa doing on stage? And he ended up being like the MC host of the whole night to introduce us as dancers with guests coming in. And, it wasn't until later that I thought about that. And I was just like, I had this haunting feeling like that was going to be me if I didn't get out when I did,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it would
Mm-hmm.
have been. There was a lot of times, and see, right there, I think, man, that should have been in the book. That part's not in the book, but that should have been in the book. Because that was a haunting part for me. Just almost like God would give me these little images and visions. I think of my future self if I didn't change course, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a time when I was in Hollywood, when I got out here, and then next thing you know, I was doing believe it or not, I was doing crystal meth, so much cocaine and meth, and the party scene. But I had done all that to make myself accepted in this casting community. I became the casting couch in reverse. These men would tell me they were going to make me a star, and I was so lost, and they invited me over, and there's going to be all these things, and next thing you know, they're giving me drugs and things, and I'm being tossed around like a little toy. And
Mm.
one day when I finally got it back into church, this church in Studio City, which I talk about in the book, I remember going across the street to get a soda at the 7-Eleven, and there was this guy standing on the corner, and this isn't in my book, but there was a guy standing on the corner, and I remember looking at him, and he looked homeless, but I looked him in the eyes, and I swear to you, I was looking at myself.
Mm.
And I looked at him, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he's like, and he stared at me, didn't say a word, and he had the same kind of jawline, hair, everything, but his face was so tattered and worn, and he just kind of sad face looked at me, and I was like, I think I'd got like, and I remember handing him my Coke or whatever, or soda pop or whatever I had, Pepsi, and because the church was across the street, and I was like, "Why don't you come to the church, man?" Or and he didn't say nothing, so I had to get back to the church, and I remember stopping and then turning around and looking, and he was gone. And again, that was a moment for me that I to this day, maybe I'll know when I get to heaven, but I believe that was a God gave me some kind of a little vision on earth. I don't know what to call it. Angelic,
An
maybe
angel,
an angel was acting me out 20 years from then, or 10 year 5, I don't know. Because even though I
like
was
the
going to that,
ghost of
it was
Christmas future.
it was the ghost of future, man, because I was still kind of having a couple toes in that arena. I was at church, but I was being pulled sometimes and back and forth, back and forth. And man, that just,
Hey, real quick, we're going to pause here for a second. If what you've been hearing today is hitting close to home, I want you to know that your story matters too. Holy Wreckage is looking for guests who are ready to share their testimony. The real one, not the cleaned up version, the one that still has scars on it. If that's you, head to holywreckage.com or send me an email at crystal@holywreckage.com. Now let's get back into it.
that's kind of that story. I ended up spending that 10 years, man, and it was so hard. I can't tell you how hard it was to get out of that business because and to this day, I'm a 56-year-old grown man, and when I go through downtimes and I have my moments as 'cause especially when you're in the entertainment industry or you've been in the business I've been in, where there's seasons, you one minute you're on top, next minute you feel like a bum, and all of a sudden I remember 4 or 5 months ago sitting out on this deck, being so down, and I'm like, next thing you know, I'm like, "Man, if I put a show together, I know I could rock man, man, I could kill that place some oh, man." And I literally my wife looks at me, she's like, "I can't even believe what just came out of your mouth." And I was like,
Mhm.
"What is wrong with me, God?" I'm like, "Lord, forgive me." It's like, but it was like, that's how powerful that pull was, not powerful more powerful than God, but it's a reality that if you're not careful and you play with that stuff, it can suck you in, and that's what it did to
Mhm.
me, man, and I understand how women and men, they get in those industries, and, my pastor was just talking about this on Sunday yesterday, like, even with the pandemic, all these like, nowadays with this OnlyFans thing, oh my gosh, the just what people are doing to just sell out to just make that quick buck and
Yeah.
willing to just give away pieces. Let me tell you something. You know how hard I tell everybody was for me to finally come to terms with all the debauchery and the sexual immorality and the drug everything I've been a part of since young age and then dancing and everything. You know how hard it was to finally come clean and kind of start sharing because here's the thing, when somebody says, "Well, why do you need to air out your laundry?" I had one guy say to me, "Why are you airing it all out?" "Oh, that's nobody's business." Let me
Mhm.
okay, let me just take you to the Bible for a second. Confess your sins to God. What is that? You're forgiven. Most people stop there. Here's the
Mhm.
hard one. Confess your sins to man, you shall be healed.
Yes.
Ah,
Yep. In Holy
you
Wreckage, like, that's the heart behind Holy Wreckage is we talk about the things that people don't wanna talk about, the things that everyone says, I don't know if I would share that with the world." And even starting this podcast, I struggled with the first few episodes were about mine and my co-host's stories, and I thought, "Man, what are people gonna think?" I don't know, like, I was scared, but I know God told me to do it. And,
yeah,
it's something that we have to do in order to heal.
yes,
There's healing in talking about it.
it
When you
is.
hold it in and you suppress it all, that's what makes us sick.
Men, especially men, and I can speak from this because it's like we're supposed to be the tough. I'm a man's man, and let's be I mean, I grew up and it was,
Mhm.
man, what is that a tear? Suck it up, and so I built myself like that, and then in the quiet places I would just bawl my eyes out, but
Mm.
I let no one see that because we're told we have to be alpha masculine and all that. And I'm all for that. I'm still like, hey, I want to be that alpha dog, lead my house, protect my family, God, family, country. You know. However, there's a side of us that's that nurture that we have to allow God to soften us up and be able to say, hey, you got to get these emotions that you have in there. You got to deal with them. If not, you're going to end up on drugs. You're going to end up as a closet or alcoholic. You're going to end up in affairs. You're going to end up in all kinds of stuff if you don't deal with it. And that's what wow, I feel like I'm onto something with this because I feel like that is a problem in the church. That is why the church has such a high divorce rate. That is why, it's like we're no different than the world. It's because, yes, we get forgiven, we get saved, hallelujah. But guess what? There's nobody getting healed from their transgressions, because
Mhm.
I don't want anybody to know that I was in a
Right.
homosexual relationship or that I was in an affair with this lady or I was in all this or I was in all that or I did all these drugs.
Or I'm
Ooh, we
still
can't,
doing,
or
and
I'm
I
still
can't
doing it
stop.
or I can't stop. That's
Mhm.
real.
Yeah.
You don't think I still don't have these thoughts and things that pop into my head? Oh my gosh. Sometimes I'm like, that's it. Forget it. Lord, you know
I'm
what?
done.
I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess. I tell myself every day, why do you use me? I would not pick me. I'm a soul. One of my fears. Whew, one of my fears is misrepresenting him and being an
Mhm.
embarrassment to the kingdom. I said, I don't want
Yeah.
to be in ministry, Lord. I just want to be because I'm afraid because right now I'm doing good and I've got this book, but I'm so afraid. I fear that I'm so afraid sometime that I might, what if I mess up? What if something happens and I fall back? That's, I was up for a part in a TV show many years ago. The guy who did, and it was a pilot, never made it. Story, I've been up for so many shows that have never made it, or I was to the last one, and then shows you would know, and I got picked. Somebody else got picked, but this show particularly was called. I think it was called Bridges, and it was with the director from Bruce Almighty, and so I was the guy they picked to represent Christianity because at the time I was a cool and edgy youth pastor when I had just gotten out of the world and I'd walked away from Hollywood and so I'm a youth pastor now and so they had a youth pastor, they had a rabbi, they had a Catholic priest, they had a Muslim cleric. I think that might be it. And so they would put us at around a table and want us to have all of these discussions. So, but at the end of the day, before all that happened, I go down to Wilshire Boulevard and it's funny, Wilshire, same place where Chippendales. That was like all the big stuff in Hollywood, all the big places. It's on Wilshire Boulevard. It's just, right outside of Beverly Hills and Century City. Big, tall buildings. So I go down there and I walk in this guy's office and he's just like getting on his little golf green and he says, so, we want to use you for this pilot and understand you have a background in Hollywood, but now you're in ministry and all this. And he's like, so let me ask you a question. He goes, how do I know you're not going to mess? How do I know that we're going to have you on here and then you're not going to mess? What happens if you go mess up or what else? You fall back and, you go out and get drunk or you go out and you mess around with some girl or whatever it is you do like that. And I looked at him and
Mhm.
it was like I was so led by Spirit of God because I calmly just kind of walked up to where he was putting with the golf on his little golf course thing. And I just stood like this. And I drew like an imaginary line with my foot, went like this, and went a little line. Then I walked right up to it and I stood and I said, sir, I said, on this side is me slipping and falling. On this side is me following God. I said, I'm right here. I said, and it's a place that I have to need God every single day because if I don't, there could be a day I put God on the back shelf and I could
Yep.
fall here. And I said, I want you to know if you think that because I'm a Christian and you want me on your show that I'm going to be this perfect person for your show. I said, I'm probably not the right guy for you. And he goes,
Mhm.
that is the most honest answer I have ever heard from. He goes, why don't most other Christians talk like you? And I go, I don't know. I go, because I'm not trying to be fake. I go,
Yeah.
the only thing difference is I know I have a savior. It doesn't give me a license to screw up, but it's at
Right.
the same time, when I do, I go, my God, forgive me, give me
Mhm.
another chance. And,
Yeah.
and I go, that's the difference. And he was like, wow. But you see, that's what this is all about. I want people so much to know that they always say, "What do you want people to get from this?" Well, there's so much, but that little element of where I say God calls the unqualified to qualify the unqualified. So He
Mhm.
picks people like broken vessels to
Yep.
go get other broken vessels, and you think,
Yep.
"Well, I need to be perfect first before I can go help someone." No,
Quite
no,
the
no, no.
opposite.
It's quite the opposite.
He doesn't use
100%.
perfect people because there are none, first of all.
Yeah. Yeah, don't look at me if you think you want perfect. Woohoo! No way.
Me neither.
But yeah, that's a real here's an alarming statistic, and I don't wanna misquote it, but it's a high number, so I don't wanna misquote because I need check the facts again, but I did hear somewhere in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't know, somewhere a high percentage of people that commit suicide are men, and it's way up there, and
Mhm.
it really hit me that I feel like that's what part of my mission is. Not just for men. I'm not on this men kick where it's men, 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 men. No, actually, I've had one of my wife's dear friends. she read it and she said she couldn't put it down. And she's like, it spoke to me and da da da. Da. So just because it's, I'm a man, it's my story. Don't think it's not going to touch you. I'm not the answer. I'm just pointing people to the answer.
Yeah.
John David Gregory is not the answer. I'm not worthy to tie the sandals of the answer, but I'm going to point you to that guy and do my best to follow him all the days of my life, even if it's hanging on to the him and him dragging me across the finish line. I'm hanging there. You will have to peel me off. So
I love that. Well, how can our audience find you if they want to learn more about you or purchase your book?
I appreciate that. Yep. So johndavidgregory.com. It'll have my bio. It has a couple links to Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I mean, you could go to Amazon and type in the Faceless Man and see this handsome lad on there. But or you could just go to the website and you'll be able to read about me a little bit and things and follows. I plan on using that site to update people on any acting opportunities that come my way and any speaking gigs. And I mean, I'm praying that just God uses that as a place that people can come to and just kind of get updates, and then God will open up doors for all these things to happen as my obedience was with this book. So. And then the on there, make sure everyone that this is something I'm building up is this YouTube page. I've been told to do this, so I'm doing it. But if they go to the website, johndavidgregory.com, and just click the little YouTube link and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'll come out here and I'll just give I'll say like adversity. We all go through it, and one day as a faceless man, I experienced A, B, and C, and I only share maybe a minute to minute and a half, 2 minutes of something that I experienced, and then it's all here in the book, and that's it. So they get a little
Ah,
daily excerpt from the Faceless Man. So, but that's pretty much it.
all right. Well, John David, it's been such a pleasure hearing your story, and I know that there's way more to it than what you were able
Oh
to
yeah,
share today. Maybe we'll have to do a number two session
absolutely.
podcast episode. But I just thank you for what you're doing for the kingdom, and that you're just stepping in to the calling that the Lord has on your life, and that's the best thing that you can do for yourself. And I
Amen.
encourage anyone that's listening that if you want to change your life, just step into the calling that the Lord has. You
Mm,
probably have an idea, or, maybe you've already been told that this is what you should be doing, but you're scared. Just do it. Just don't wait
amen.
until you feel like you're ready for it. Just go ahead and do it. Because,
That's
like
it.
John David said, he doesn't call the qualified. You might not know how it's going to start,
Mm,
how it's going
Yep.
to end, but all you have to do is make that first step, and he's going to take care of everything.
Mm. Oof.
Thank
And
you,
I got
John
to.
David.
Hey, thank you for what you're doing. I just have to say this. Thank you for what you're doing. I can feel the presence. I just want to say this publicly. I don't say this lightly. I can feel God's presence on this podcast. A lot of them I haven't, but I feel it with yours. And I
Mm.
sense, or I don't even like to say feel, because feelings, emotions, but I sense the presence of God. So I want to encourage you as well. It's something I do as a faceless man, is I always like to give back immediately and say, keep doing what you're doing. God has got his hand on your life, and I see God just using you to reach so many people, and give you, as you continue to make other people's dreams come to fruition by just getting people on your shows. God's gonna just do the supernatural in your life. Watch it and expect it. And I can't wait to, when we get back on a part 2 down the road, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, John David, look what this is what happened. So
I
anyway, I can't
cannot
wait. God
wait.
bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a wrap. Thanks for being here for Holy Wreckage, where we tell the truth about pain, healing, and the God who still redeems the mess. If this episode hit home, don't just move on. Subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss what's next. And share it with someone who needs hope. For more faith-based tools, support, and resources to help you walk through your own wreckage, visit holywreckage.com/resources. Until next time, remember this: your story isn't too far gone for God. It's not too broken or too messy. He still restores, he still rebuilds, and he's not done yet.